Something that I realized is people that you truly love, that you may disagree with or speak against some things that they are involved with, they can begin to look at you as an enemy or the enemy. And some people who have been labeled as enemies are truly the greatest ally or friend that the accusing person ever had. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that someone you see as a clear enemy due to their intentions towards you, like someone who you know means you no good. I'm not saying that this person is a friend. But the individual that I'm speaking on is the individual who at first you think is maybe hating on you because they're not agreeing with your idea or what you want to do. They're not necessarily speaking down on you, diminishing your value, but they're just telling you, I don't think that this route is particularly the best route for you. Now, keep in mind, there are ways to say these things as well, because you can come off in the wrong manner if you don't watch your speech while disagreeing with your loved ones. You do need to make sure that you watch your words. And a lot of times we don't do that because we feel so passionately about the person or the topic that we're discussing. But as much as we possibly could, we need to bring our disagreements to one another in love, honestly. Now, I know that sometimes, or a lot of times, or most of the time, the person who you're bringing this information to can turn up the heat on the situation, because there is a lot of emotion involved in being told that either something you're doing may be wrong or that someone does not agree with you. Listen, it is a strong psychological fact that it is not a great feeling to have someone tell you no, or I don't agree, or I don't think what you're doing is the best way. People can act like they have so much ego and so much pride, but no human being likes to be told that whatever they did or said or attempted was not enough, or was wrong, or was incorrect, especially if they esteem themselves as an intelligent person, a disciplined person, an observant person, especially if they put themselves on a pedestal already. And I don't mean to say pedestal in a terrible manner. Obviously, some people take that level to narcissistic levels, but I'm just speaking on, pride themselves in being wise, because, wisdom is uplifted. So there is a certain, correct spirit to that. But for someone like that to hear that they're wrong and to kind of be knocked off that pedestal, me myself, I could attest to it. You you immediately defend what you believe in because you believe that you're right. Now, there's different ways you can go about this. One is you immediately defend whatever your position is because you are you, and there's no way that you are wrong on this. Now, that comes from a place of pride. It comes from a place of speaking before listening a lot of times. You know, that's the fool's way. I've taken that path many a times. But another way to respond to these things or to react to these criticisms, bro, the way that the Bible breaks down taking wisdom and taking counsel, it's like if you reject it. And see, the thing is, a lot of times people will say, who are you to speak on this? Who are you to speak on that? They may say that because you don't have status. They may say that because you don't have relation to them. But the thing is, if God spoke through a donkey to save a man or to save a man's life from being taken, from being executed, if a donkey, what the Bible refers to as a jackass, if a jackass could save your life, why would you not take sound advice from a human being with blood running through their veins just like you? Now, keep in mind, everyone's advice is not correct. But many people, you already know the advice that you're receiving is correct because it's in regard to something, it's in regards to something secretive that you're doing or something that you're not too proud of, something that you're not too sure of. And because of that, you kind of keep it to yourself. You try to figure it out on your own. See, that's what we tell ourselves when we know we're involved in something that we have no business being involved with. I'm going to figure this thing out on my own, because deep inside we know if we ask for advice or counsel from any decent, moral having human beings, they're going to shut down whatever it is that we're doing. They're going to speak against it. So we run from wisdom at times. But my point was, you consider someone to be an enemy because they're going against what you desire. But what you desire does not line up with what God desires. So it is a friend's duty to speak against you. Not speak against you, but to speak against what you're doing. To let you know, like, hey man, I don't think that is the best decision. And at that time, when you want to be hard-headed, when you don't want to listen to advice, even though the Bible all through Proverbs talks about listen to sound advice, wisdom, counsel, it stands at the corner of it says stands on every corner, stands on every rooftop, shouting out to you, crying out to you, turn to me, come, be filled with wisdom. Once you really understand how much wisdom is all around you, you begin to see signs in everything. Let you be involved in a situation that's shaky or something that you kind of know you shouldn't be involved with. You will begin to see signs in everything around you. A baby could say something. A dog could do something. The wind could blow a piece of paper past you with a specific thing or article or topic written on it. Like, if you think that this universe is not in tune with us, not lined up with us, you can find signs for a lot of problems in the earth, in nature, because that's God. God is in that. Or if you don't want to just listen to regular human beings, that may be all of the different methods that he has to exhaust to try to get your attention or to try to get my attention. But how many times have we felt like someone was against us because they did not agree with what we wanted to do? And it wasn't until we weren't blinded by our anger anymore, or we weren't blinded by the desire to do what we wanted anymore. And now we can clearly see that that was a friend, that they gave sound advice. Now, a lot of people handle these things, the results and the end game of it differently. So that kind of, differentiates how we view people. Someone may have given you the good advice, but now they're mocking you, saying, I told you so. I told you. You don't listen. Now look at you. Now look at you. You may not see them as a friend, and they may not be conducting themselves as a friend at this current moment because they're kind of using your failure as an opportunity to showcase their wisdom or their foresight. But at the end of the day, did they not take the time to tell you initially? Because they didn't have to. Did they not give you friendly advice? Now you've given them the opportunity to celebrate your failure by not listening. But did they not give you that advice? They didn't have to give you that advice. On some type of level, as messed up as they may be, or maybe they're the type of person that's been hurt before, so, by people over and over before. So they don't like to let people know how much they care about them. Maybe they don't want to tell you how much they love you, but they have to love you on some type of level for them to take the time, the first time, to tell you not to do the thing that you were doing. This is not an excuse for me personally to talk crazy to anyone or to not really evaluate my words before speaking to anyone. But I come from a culture of just a lot of rough talk and what you might consider locker room banter or construction talk. You get what I'm saying? And as a man on certain levels, I like that. Because I could see, like, the people who this rough talk would come from sometimes, or these rough tongue lashings, you could still feel a certain level of love behind it. Because like I said, you wouldn't be telling me this if you didn't associate with me on some level, if you didn't rock with me on some type of level. You're telling me this because you don't want to see me go down a certain path. So I would ask folks all the time, even if you were about to walk into a pit full of snakes, would you not want someone to tell you about it? Now, let me ask you this as well. If someone is about to save your life, do you care how they say it to you? If you're sitting there and you see someone about to electrocute themselves or kill themselves, or you see a baby, let's say it's a baby over there playing with the electrical socket. What do you do? What do you do? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Does your speech not reach and match the severity of the action that you're trying to correct? If someone asks you, I know you're going to say that's two different things. Well, this is two different things, but that's my point. I know it's two different things that require two different levels of urgency. If a child comes to you and asks, can they eat a certain thing late at night? Or they want to eat a certain thing at night, and you know that that thing isn't the best thing for them to be eating before they go to sleep. You're going to say, no, you can't have that, baby. No, look here, you want to eat this? You want to eat that? You offer them something else. No, they may whine, they may, nag. They're most likely, going to give you some pushback, which at that point, you may just get a little irritated and agitated. Like, look, come on now. It's late. You really need to be laying your behind down anyway. But you can't have that. You can have this or something else. That's your response. Let that same child, like I was saying earlier, be playing with an electrical socket over there with a fork or a spoon or something, and tell me, now what level of urgency does your rebuke require? Hey, get from over there. Stop that. Are you crazy? You might even have to whoop them. Because the level of severity to the rebuke is higher. So sometimes when people, this is, like I say, this is not for you. This is not for you to feel better about being the one to talk crazy to people. This is for you just in case if you are the one receiving advice, but it's coming from someone who doesn't have it's coming from someone who doesn't have the gloves on. They done took off the gloves, if you know what that term means. They're not hitting you with soft gloves to, make you feel better about it. They done took off the gloves and they just hitting you with truth. Just bang, 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 bang. This is for those who may be receiving advice from someone who gives it in what you might consider a rough manner. This is for you to just be strengthened to not use, you can't use that as an excuse to say, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to anything that they just said. Listen, you are the only one that's going to not benefit. Because that person who's talking to you, they have that wisdom already. They have that advice already. You think you're going to diminish what they said because they said it in a manner that you didn't like. That's one thing I was always big on. You may tell me something crazy in a crazy manner, but once it's in there, once it's in my mind, it's in there. And I don't, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, you have to be like me. You have to act like, maybe this isn't normal. I don't want to act as if like this is something that everyone has. Like this is the way that everyone processes these particular things. But what I will say is the way that I am, as mad as I may be at you for being the one to tell me this, as much as I might be racing in my mind to hurry up and think of something to tell back to you about you, since you want to tell me about me, and that's one thing I never respect. Beat me to the punch. If you have something to say to me, you should have said it. Don't wait until I done say something to you, because that means it wasn't that important. A lot of people, oh, well, since it's that day now, let me tell you about you. Nah, I don't want to hear it now. I beat you to the punch. I was the realer friend. I told it to you first. You feel me? So you see me doing something that you don't agree with or don't like, and you're not speaking on it. You know what I'm saying? That means you don't want change. You don't want change for me. But yeah, man, at that point, that's pretty much just it. I kind of lost track just now of exactly what I was on, but the story I was wrapping around to. But just be open and available. You know what I mean? Like I said, this isn't Be open and available to receive wisdom. This isn't an excuse to talk crazy to people or anything like that, but receive the information. That's just one thing that I always did. It doesn't matter what you said to me. Like I said, I might be trying to think of something to combat what you said with, but I can't deny, or I couldn't deny and can't, the truth in whatever it was that you said. I can't deny it. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So how am I going to deny what came out of your mouth? All of us are led by a spirit. All of us are I don't want to say led by God. We should be, but all of us have the gift and the life, the seed of God in us. So at all points in times, even people who we may consider not the most moral people or not the best people to be leading or teaching, even those individuals, when they get angry, when they get upset and just speak out, there's truth in what they're saying. People who you may consider uneducated, ignorant, whatever, people who you forget about, don't even consider in society. When they are angry and speak out, 9 times out of 10, what they're saying has absolute truth to it. That's a voice of God. So that's why I say you have to be open and available to anyone, what is being said. I'm not saying take advice from any and everyone. I'm not saying to sit there and be the student of anyone. I'm not saying to sit at the foot of anyone and let them be your sensei and follow behind them blindly. But just listen to information. Take some information sometimes from some people. That there's wisdom. I don't care who it is. There is wisdom in any and every one. That's why the Bible says that we ought not to have respect of persons, and that God does not have respect of persons, meaning God does not look at different people and treat them differently because who we are. Now, I'm saying that, and it sounds good, it feels good, but I have to watch that. Keep in mind, you are taught since birth to treat people differently. You are taught by advertising on television, online, social media, especially in this era of social media. You are taught to differentiate subconsciously through the news. These are things that people can say that they don't do all they want, but they're lying because you're flesh and you're in this world. You're not of this world, but you're in this world. And this world has been promoting that into our flesh subconsciously since birth. You have a certain percentage of that in you. It's just all about whether you control it or not. Whether you are always present of mind to fight against it or not. Whether you're not going to let yourself get caught up in fame and fake fame or not. But let me tell you this. While anyone is sitting there saying none of these things are in them, a time will come. You give it time enough. You play around with social media enough. Things will begin to grow in you that you never even knew you had a seed of. You know why? Because you don't remember when this seed was planted. But that's the devil's job. All through music, all through movies, all through bad influences a lot of times. Different seeds are planted in us. Pause. You understand? And different things in life that we are not aware of sometimes begin to nurture these seeds and grow these seeds. Because keep in mind, a garden unattended to is still a growing garden. Just because you're not taking care of that particular garden, it's not like another project where, and when I say garden, I'm referring to our mind, our spirit. It's ever growing, everlasting, because every single day you walk around, you're a sponge. You're absorbing something. You're absorbing spirits. You're absorbing different influences, whether you want to or not, whether it's on your mind to be spiritual or not, it doesn't matter. It's taking place. But it isn't like the mind, the spirit. It isn't like an old school car you're working on where if you stop working on it for 2 weeks and you leave all of the tools in the same place in your garage, when you come back in 2 weeks, everything is exactly where you left it and how you left it. Unless you have someone in your life that moves your stuff around. But the mind and the spirit is not like that. It's more so like a garden. Whereas if you leave this garden unattended, it's just going to run wild. How many of you can cut the grass, forget to cut it for a few weeks, come back, and in reality, the grass said, "We know you forgot about me, so we stopped growing"? No, when you get back to that grass, it's going to let you know, most definitely, you forgot about us, but we did not forget about you. We got something for you. See, that's like different relationships. A lot of us may abandon different relationships and say, I'm going to get back to that later. I'll get back to that later. Some people may have relationships like that with their children, with their spouse, with a friend, with family member, whatever. I'm going to get back to that later. Get back to that later. Not realizing that life is not going to wait for you. Something may happen to those individuals in that meantime. Their mind is growing. Their mind is changing. It's like a garden. Just because you're not tending to it, that doesn't mean that when you come back to it, it's going to be the same as it was when you left. I know many people who have experienced being incarcerated could attest to that most definitely. They can prove that and speak to that more than anyone I could imagine. How life will not stop while they're locked up. And they come home to a lot of different changes in the world and relationships and just how they move. So I know I've gotten way off topic, but sometimes that's my point. That's my intention. I feel as though we stayed in the realm in the ballpark of what we wanted to talk about, but just be mindful of good advice, sound wisdom. Pray for those who don't take your advice. Don't carry yourself as someone whose advice has to be listened to and followed, because at the end of the day, you're most likely just relaying a message from God. So a lot of times we need to relay the message in the most godly manner and get out the way and let that seed do what it's going to do. It's not our job. We all have different jobs and different roles when it comes to relaying God's message. Some of us plant the seed. Some of us water the seed. But it's God that's going to make it grow. That's biblical. We all need to be planting seeds as much as we could. Some type of seed of blessing. We used to get, I'm not going to say we, even though it probably was we as children, but I know me for sure. I used to get mad Because my daddy used to walk around all the time and just tell people, bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. And to me, it was just like, why are you, it was embarrassing to me. This was before I had really got into the word for myself and whatnot. As a teenager, you don't want that. You don't want the parent who's holy roly and everywhere you go. But that was my father. He was an example and still is to this day at 98 years old. But what I'm saying is, I used to speak against that. And look at that. Sometimes the devil can speak through you as well. What happened when Peter told Jesus, we don't want you to die. If anyone comes to try to get you, man, we're going to get them. We're not going to let that happen. He said, you see, I have my sword on me. I'm going to fight for you. And what did he say? He pretty much told him, Peter, shut up. You have no idea who's talking through you right now. That's the devil talking through you. How did Jesus know that? Because if he would have followed what Peter was saying, listened to what Peter was saying, we would not have an opportunity to have salvation today, because Jesus would not have died on the cross. He would have let his boys protect him, and he would have walked the earth and became king. But Jesus knew, if what you're saying does not line up with the end goal and intention of God or a godly plan, then it has to be of the devil. So the same way I used to tell my father, stop doing that. Why you tell everybody that? That's embarrassing. Man used to tell me, oh boy, shut up. He saw the foolishness in my rebuke, quote unquote, attempt at rebuke. He saw the foolishness in that. He knew what he was doing. He said, boy, I'm planting seeds. You don't understand it. You have no idea what's going on. But you're not going to stop me from doing God's work. And he never stopped. So we have the ability to rebuke. We have the ability to build. And just don't be someone who only wants to utilize the advice and counsel of one of God's children when it lines up with, let's say, your expectation of good news. And see, that's something that's dangerous. When people only want to stamp God's name on things that line up with what they want. That's dangerous. You mean to tell me God never disagrees with you? You mean to tell me God is never looking at what you're doing as some questionable actions? He never has something to say to you to sharpen you up? Let's just be realistic, wise, and loving. And that's it.